So I am 8 days away from doing the Leadville 100 MTB. All right, so how did I get here? A couple months ago, I think it was February, Rich Froning, the CrossFit guy, CrossFit Mayhem, put out a call for people to do Leadville with him. And it was going to be a raffle through Mayhem Missions and the Leadville Legacy Trail Foundation, which is a nonprofit through Leadville associated with the race, with the town. And their goal is for all the money to go back to support the town, support kids who are in the schools there. They give a scholarship, a grant to any student who graduates high school and wants to go on to do something, doesn't have to be college, some sort of higher education. Those two organizations gave 10 charity spots, and Rich was going to do a raffle for 10 random winners. He did Leadville the previous year. Leadville is something that I've actually always had on my mind. I always thought it was epic and amazing. It's an iconic race. So many people know about it. I thought it would be an amazing thing to do someday, but that was it. It was a someday. It was a pipe dream. And then the last couple of years, as I've had kids and I've thought about the things that I want to do and accomplish and the things that I dream about, I started to think like I should put this on my radar, like for real. Like I should really make a plan to do this. I'm turning 40 this year in 2024. I'm actually turning 40 next month. But I thought maybe the next year, 2025, I'd try to get into it. That be like, I do it when I'm 40, maybe do it every 10 years, 40 to 50 if I'm able to, and get a special 10-year buckle. But anyway, so Rich put out this raffle, and I thought, well, I'm not ready, but sure, I'll donate to Mayhem Missions and support the cause. That's fantastic. Happy to do that. I never win these things anyway, but happy to donate, and you never know. And then I still remember the night before they were going to announce the winners. I told my wife, I was like, wouldn't it be so funny and terrible if I was selected? Like, I'm not ready in any way. And then sure enough, Rich goes on Instagram Live, and the very first name he calls out is my name. And I'm instantly excited and over the moon and panicking at the same time. They gave us a couple weeks to make the decision because it's a big decision. It's a big commitment. Obviously, just getting ready and doing the event is a big commitment, but the financial commitment is pretty big too. The charity entry, there's a $5,000 donation fundraising requirement. And then there's the cost of doing the event and everything on top of that. I didn't have a bike for the event. I didn't have any cycling gear. I didn't have any of the nutrition stuff figured out. Countless other stuff. I had to, get to Leadville either well beforehand to get some exposure, or just, get there a week before. So the cost of the Airbnb and all that kind of stuff. So there was a lot to think through, and I took the full 2 weeks to consider it. It was literally the day of the deadline that I, submitted everything and made it official. And Liz and I just said, we weren't ready for it. We weren't expecting it. We don't really have the money ready set aside for this, but this is one heck of a way to do it. So can't really pass up on this opportunity. So fast forward several months later, and I've got all the logistics figured out. I was able to raise some money. So if you're one of the ones that helped, that donated and helped support the effort and the cause, thank you so much for that. It's a tremendous help. I was really shocked by how many people donated something. That was pretty incredible. The the work is done. The training is done. I actually just finished my last indoor training session. Been tracking my FTP through Trainer Road. I've done all my indoor training sessions through Trainer Road's adaptive training program. I hit and surpassed some of my goals for FTP, for weight loss. I think there's another video for all that kind of stuff, but the work is done. I've done the training. I've worked as hard as I can. I'm extremely proud of the work that I've done and what I've accomplished. And now I just got to get ready. So I'm about to pack my bike, which I'm super nervous about as well, because I've never flown with a bike before and I only have one bike. So I'm hoping I pack it well, that it survives the flight and it shows up on time and all that stuff. But let's go get it packed. Well, good morning. It is the day of the flight. Bike bag's all packed. It was actually a lot simpler and smoother than I thought it was going to be. These bags are expensive, but worth it, I guess. So that's it. I'm all packed up. About to head to the airport. Headed to Leadville. Okay, welcome to Leadville. I made it. I'm here at David's house. Bike made it, as you saw, through the airport, and it looks to be in good shape. Looks like my stuff was rifled through pretty good by the TSA, but that's okay. So just got to put it together and make sure that everything's totally fine, but looks good. So that's huge weight off my shoulders. Okay, so I didn't film much from this point, partly because putting my bike back together didn't go so well. And the other part was just that I was pretty wrapped up in the moment and in being there, and felt like I was being very present and didn't want to be worrying about my GoPro and footage and all that kind of stuff. So I don't regret it, but I don't have a whole lot of footage to share, but I did have some photos and some short clips, so I will tell you the story and add in some photos and such whenever I can. But as I mentioned, I was having trouble getting my bike back together. The SRAM transmission was kind of new to me, and I hadn't really taken apart the derailleur and such, so it was not shifting well when I got it all back together. And it was more than just the micro adjust needing to be adjusted through the app. It was bigger than that, and I knew that I was going to have to go into the bike shop. So I made my way to my Airbnb, which was in Copper Mountain, which was a really beautiful place to stay. The view in the morning, every time I would come out of the Airbnb, was just so nice. Definitely part of making it a great experience there. But I planned to get up, early and get into town, back into Leadville to go to Cycles of Life, and be there before they opened in case it was super busy. And I ended up needing to go see them a few different times, and they were incredible to work with. I was so fortunate that they were staffed up, stocked up, ready for the volume of business that they were going to handle. I did try a couple other bike shops in the general area, kind of like around Copper Mountain, but no one was able to help. Because I just assumed that Cycles of Life would be too busy. But every time I needed something, they were there. They helped right away. If I needed to take my bike in, which I had to do twice, they got it in and then said they would try to get it back before the end of the day, and they got it back to me within a few hours, really. So um, that was really cool. So if you're going, you can definitely count on them. But I got my bike there first thing in the morning. They were great, and then that was a nice excuse to just go explore Leadville, because that was my first time getting there. I hadn't gotten there yet since arriving in Colorado. So it was just an awesome town, such a great place to be. Would love to spend the entire summer there. And the funny thing is that that day that I took my bike in just so happened to be the start of the burro races, and it's these donkey races. So I show up in town, and on the street, the main street, Harrison, there are a bunch of people, like runners with donkeys lining up on the street. Part of the street's closed. I'm like, what on earth is going on? And then I was able to catch the start of the short race. I don't know how long it was. I think the winner came back in maybe an hour and a half as I was there, but it's just something I stumbled on and was really funny. I sent the video to my wife. My kids thought it was hilarious and loved watching the video. I was able to find a great spot for lunch, really good food there. I went to High Mountain Pies a lot. They had more than just pizza. My most favorite sandwich, I had that sandwich like 4 times while I was there. And I checked out the new bike park and pump track that they had built, and I'm working on helping get one in the town that I'm in, back home. And it was really cool to see. Looked like they were just finishing it. It was a mix of dirt and asphalt, so super cool. Glad I stumbled upon that. But then later that day, my bike was ready and I was able to get out for a ride. So myself and one of the Mayhem Missions team members, Nick, who was there and was up for a ride, we went out to Columbine, and he had already done it and he'd ridden a lot, but he had his e-bike, so he said he would ride his e-bike with me. So we went out, and that was my first ride at elevation, first ride out there in Colorado. And man, it was surreal to be on the course. Like, I've seen so many videos, I've watched countless YouTube videos about the course, about Leadville, kind of detailed videos or overall story videos, and it was super surreal to finally be out there. I had a little bit of rain, hail, thunder, wind, and the good bit of sunshine too. So it was pretty similar to what actually had happened to me on the day of the race. Coming down, my wheel got out of true. I noticed a pretty significant wobble in my rear wheel, so I ended up having to go back to the bike shop, and once again was there at opening. They took it in, they said to get back to me, and then they got back to me a couple hours later, and then I was able to head out to the fish hatchery and do the power line climb. So I did power line up to Sugarloaf, came down Sugarloaf, and then I turned around and I did the Sugarloaf climb, and then I did the power line descent. That was really fun, honestly. The powerline descent with like very few people around was an absolute blast. I had a ton of fun. You can definitely get some speed up, some fun things to jump over. I saw Keegan Swenson coming up the Sugarloaf climb, which was hilarious and cool, but he was flying up Sugarloaf as if he was just on a conveyor belt or something, high speed one, and I was just standing still. But that was pretty cool. But in terms of the week of that, things got pretty fun from there because more people were coming to town. More of the Mayhem Missions team was starting to show up, and so there was just more things to do, more events. just a lot more happening. So as riders through Mayhem Missions and for the Leadville 100 Trail Legacy Foundation, it was special to have the Mayhem team meet them in person finally. So we were able to meet them when we were picking up our packets, and we had an invite for the special dinner that they host during the week, which was a super memorable night and just an incredible organization. And I hope to be able to go back and do it again and go partner with them, go there through their organization. So that was a really great experience. After that, we had some group rides since more of our team was there. And I wish I got some footage of that, but I did not get footage of most of our group rides. On Wednesday, we rode out from the start area generally up St. Kevin's, and then some of us continued on to Carter Summit and then came back. And then Thursday, I did a solo ride in the mornings, partly to kind of feel what the cold mornings would be like, and partly just to do a very easy ride where I wasn't pressured by anyone. And I did the minor trail around Leadville, which is a really cool trail, mostly paved. I think it might actually all be paved. That just kind of goes around the town through the woods. A super nice trail, 10, 11 miles maybe. And that was a really nice way to start the day on Thursday. And then there was a group ride that went out from the fish hatchery out to Twin Lakes. So super fun day, but that was it for the riding until race day. And then I probably shouldn't have waited so long, but then the night before I finally got all my nutrition ready, all my bottles ready, filled with the nutrition supplements, the carbs and sodium that I wanted in the appropriate amounts, and had all my gels organized. And Liz had finally arrived Friday, day before, so I was able to talk her through what was going where, make sure everything was labeled. And she just had to get everything to each location, and then it was all labeled. So she just had to wait for me to show up and then hand me what was labeled for that station. So that brought us to the big day. It's finally the race day. Man, it was surreal for it all to come together. You know, looking back at February and March when I'd first found out, it was 285 pounds, hadn't really been working out that much, to here I am, race day in Leadville. I'd put in the work. I'd taken my FTP up from what felt like nothing, below 200 to just under 300, 297. My weight had dropped from 285 to 240. And then it actually dropped a little lower while I was there in Leadville before the race. So I'd lost 45 pounds, had put in the work, had done exactly what I had wanted to do. And so this was supposed to be the cherry on top, just showing up. But obviously I was excited and wanted to do the best I possibly could. So I wanted to do another video for the race itself, but since I didn't capture any footage, I'm just packing this all into one video. So appreciate you hanging in there for it. It's a good story. I'm excited about the story. So let's get into the race day. So it was a super exciting morning. I think most of the nerves had melted away into just excitement, but by that point, certainly a little bit of eagerness to just start, because you're out there in the starting area for a while before you actually roll across the finish line. So I was very eager to just start on the course and be rolling. I was in the Blue Corral, which is a really good spot to be in. I was in that through the charity. I didn't qualify to be in that corral. I was just placed in that corral as part of the charity. So I kind of went towards the back of it. I was there with some of the Mayhem team, and we rolled out around 6:42, I think is when we crossed the line. It was about 30 minutes after the elite men start. So when the gun goes off and the timer that sits over the finish line starts, we were roughly 30 minutes after that. And then the starting line wasn't too bad, but then the first mile or two was quite cold because you're not really pedaling, it's downhill, and the air is cold, everything's cold, so now you're going fast and not working, and that's when I got cold. But it didn't last long because the climbs start quickly, and my primary goal was just to make the first cutoff at Twin Lakes at 10:50 a.m. So I took off at 6:42. First cutoff was at 10:50 a.m. And I realized more and more leading up to the race that was going to be a difficult goal. Like that was going to be a real stretch for me to be able to make it. I had kind of been glossing over that leading up to it, but like that was really significant, and I was really starting to understand that. So by race day, I was more grounded in the fact that was going to be my big goal, and I was going to have to go harder in those first 4 hours than I had thought I should or would, or you might typically pace Leadville. You know, people say to stay, at like an RPE of 5 to 6 for the start of it, and I just wouldn't be able to do that if I wanted to make the cutoff. So I got started. We started the climb, and that's when things like started not going super well logistically because it was just even slower than I thought it would be. I thought it would be pretty slow. I'd always heard there's traffic, people stop and walk, and if people in front of you are walking, you have to walk. But the walking started sooner than I thought it would and lasted longer as there was just a lot of congestion. And there's spots that I just have to walk anyway because I did it a few days before, but it just started sooner and kind of lasted longer until the really steep spot kind of ends and the grade is a little bit more manageable. And then I could push the pace a little bit. But by that point, I could feel that I was behind schedule, mostly because I had started walking so much sooner and I'd walked more than I thought I would. So I could feel that just wasn't right, and I was really going to need to push. So when I could, I pushed. If it was really steep, I walked, but if it was flat or steady grade, I just did the best I could. And then when I got to Powerline, I'm comfortable going down, so I really pushed the speed there when possible, which was harder than when I practiced it, since there was basically just a few people there when I practiced it, and then on the race day there's a lot of people, and you have to be very cautious. You don't want to cause someone else to crash or anything. There's a lot of people who just don't have a ton of experience with that kind of mountain biking. It's not technical in any way, shape, or form, but to some people it would be if they're just not used to that, if they're used to being on the road a bit more. But as I'd pass people, I'd let off the brakes as much as possible and get as much speed as I could, and then as I'd catch someone, I'd slow back down, and I still did really well to make the most of that descent. And then you get down to the road and you're almost to the first cruise station, which was really exciting, and it was oddly emotional seeing it. I was really taken back by how I started to tear up and choke up as I saw the aid station. And I think it was partly that I was realizing that I was in it, that I was there, I was in the race, it was happening, it's all finally real. And it was also partly knowing that I'd gone harder than I had planned, and I was starting to feel cramps creep in a little bit, so that was a little scary, and I just wasn't sure what this was going to mean for the cutoff. But I got through the aid station in less than 2 minutes. I was trying to do no more than 2 minutes at any station. Caught up on nutrition, finished what was left in my one bottle, restocked, and was headed off to Twin Lakes. And it was 9:18 a.m. at 16 miles to get to the Twin Lakes cutoff point. had 92 minutes left to do that. And the next section is an interesting section. It was a tough balance of feeling like I needed to push, but also realizing that if I pushed any harder, the cramps might become unbearable, and I'd be completely wrecked if I actually made the cutoff and had to keep going. So I pushed when I could, again, like did what I could when it made sense, and I held back if it was a long climb or super steep, or if I was, redlining on a climb, then I would just get off and walk so that I wasn't in the red at any point. Twin Lakes, which was a, make or break thing. Like if I don't hit it, I don't continue. It's not like I'm going to miss a goal time. It's just, if I don't do it, I'm done. I get off my bike and I go home. So I was able to make it to Twin Lakes, and I had 12 minutes to spare. So that was another emotional moment, knowing that I had made it. I'd made the first cutoff. It's a pretty large chunk, like 4 hours before the first cutoff, but I had made it. I was able to keep going. There was no more cutoffs between me and the top of Columbine, so I was going to be able to do the Columbine climb. That was pretty amazing. It was an amazing feeling. I was allowed to keep going. I was just, I think, 4 miles or so to the next cruise station where Liz was. And when I got there, the Lost Canyon cruise station, aid station, everyone was excited. Like they seemed genuinely excited that I made it there and that I made the cutoff. They had seen on the tracker that I had made it, and that I was on the way. So that was really fun to see. And it was actually the only time that I saw like the full crew at our Mayhem Missions tent, because everyone else was staying there to wait for their riders to come back down off Columbine. So even the fastest riders, like the elite pro men, had already passed through, but our fastest riders hadn't come back through yet. So it was cool to see the tent full. It's the only time I did. But the whole team was there. Liz was there. It was really exciting that I made the cutoff, and it would have been fun to stay longer, but I had to keep going. So I got what I needed, and I was off to climb Columbine. And this was a really dark part of the race. I couldn't stand up to pedal anymore, so it was just seated. I couldn't stand up because I was cramping. If I stood up, my legs would just completely cramp up, and I'd have to shake them out, get off, something like that. So I just didn't stand up. I had to stay seated or had to walk if I couldn't make it. And I just had to keep my head down and keep moving. And it was maybe 30 minutes in that I realized I couldn't eat and drink anymore. If I did, I'd feel sick or I'd throw up in my mouth. And at some point, I just stopped trying to get anything down because it was such a bad feeling and experience. I had to walk more of the lower section than I had hoped, but that's what I needed to do to keep moving. And the upper portion, which they call the goat trail, is when everything just felt super bad. I was seeing things. My head hurt. I was moving so slow, like just the tiniest baby steps. It got really steep, so that's kind of like just how a lot of people were doing it. But for me, it was just, I just kept moving and tried to make sure that was the case, but otherwise it was almost an out-of-body experience. And I made it to the top. I did make it in 2 hours and 25 minutes, which was longer than I had hoped. Longer than it took me when I did it fresh, of course. And at this point, I thought the race was over for me. Like as soon as I got to the next cutoff, I would be cut off. That took such a long time. it took so much out of me. I felt like I couldn't function. And there's an aid station at the top. You can't have your team go there, but they staff it. And I stopped for a few minutes. I stopped for more than 2 minutes. I was able to drink, so I drank what was in my bottles. I had a gel, maybe 2 gels. I don't remember exactly, but I just remember sitting there just trying to gather myself. And I started to feel the pain in my head go away a little bit. I could see more clearly again. And so I was like, all right, just start going downhill. Downhill's fairly easy for me, super rough at the top. So that's not exactly easy, but at least you're not pedaling and it goes by fairly fast. So I started down knowing that I'd likely miss the cutoff. That was just my assumption at the time, but I would just keep moving until I got there. So I got back to the cruise station at the bottom of the climb, and there were still a couple people left with Liz, and they were really positive and encouraging me to just go get my stuff and go. And I was kind of there to like just be like, well, this was fine. I'll ride to the next cutoff and maybe I'll ride back to you or something. But like they didn't let me get into that. Those thoughts didn't come out into words. They just got my stuff, got back on my bike and kept going. And it was only 4 miles to Twin Lakes. And it started getting really windy at the top of Columbine. I could see weather coming in, so I was kind of guessing it would start raining. And sure enough, by the time I left that Lost Canyon cruise station, it started to rain, and it rained that whole 4 miles back to Twin Lakes. But that kind of made me just focus. Like it really sucked, so it was just kind of like focus, just ride, get there, get through it. And I made it to Twin Lakes, and someone was shouting, 8 minutes left. You made it. Which was quite the feeling. I really did think that I was entirely out of it. And, I got into the Twin Lakes aid station is such a big, long stretch of people and everything. And I get there and start seeing people and people are still cheering, whatever, but I'm feeling like, man, I didn't finish it. I really let them down. And then one of the staffers says, 8 minutes, you made it. So I couldn't believe it. I just started pedaling again. The weather was terrible. So it's kind of one of those things in a lot of the Western states, the weather's bad 1 minute, it could be great the next. So just kind of keep moving and maybe you're going to get through it. But after I got through that aid station, it was like any playbook I had thought through was gone. I wasn't really prepared, didn't really have a plan. I was way more tired than I thought possible. And the next section was rough, but not that bad. So it was just something like just suffer through, just keep moving. And we're going to take this 1 mile at a time. So that next section, like I said, isn't rough. It's all over 9,000 feet though. There's just no super crazy steep, long climbs, before the next cruise station, which is also the next cutoff point. So, I remember, as bad as I felt, I remember thinking of some really good things as I kind of trudged my way over the next 15 miles. So I'd already passed the longest amount of time I had been on my bike, which was really cool. And I was just hitting the most miles I've ridden on a bike. And at some point the rain had stopped and the wind calmed down a bit and the sun came out. So it turned into a beautiful day again. So there was definitely some positives there. And as bad as I felt, I just kept thinking about how proud I was that I had made those 2 cutoffs. I was, roughly 70 miles in to the Leadville 100. So that was huge. And even if I didn't make the next cutoff like that, those were some major major wins. I made it up Columbine and down, and I was still riding. I'd done a significant chunk of the course. So nothing special came up in that next section of the course. There were some moments of feeling good and like I could pedal, and there's some moments that were really not good. There were a couple times when I was with another rider too, and we tried to do some drafting, but we weren't organized, and it was super brief if we ever got it. But finally saw the Outward Bound aid station, and it's in a pretty flat stretch, so you see it from a distance. And someone about a mile or so out had said that we had 8 minutes. There were a couple of us. We weren't in a group necessarily, but we were close enough to be able to hear someone shouting that we had 8 minutes left. And so I knew that I was going to make the cutoff. But I also knew that the timing mat was on the other side of the aid station. So there's a little bit to wrestle through. So I'm thinking through, what do I need? What do I need to get to Carter Summit? Is there anything that I should change or do differently? So I'm trying to think about that before I got there, which was nice. It was nice to know that I've beat the cutoff before I'm seeing Liz at the stop. So the other thing was that I was starting to realize that I might actually finish the race, because the only cutoff after this one is the Carter Summit. And I'd heard that they're pretty generous with that cutoff. So I was starting to have it in my mind, which I hadn't at any point during the day, that I might actually finish the race. So that was getting exciting, also a little bit scary, since there was still a lot left. Like, the miles were ticking by, but there's some really hard parts of the course left. So so I knew the timing mat was on the other side of the Outward Bound aid station, and I wondered if Liz would have thought to go to the other side and meet me on the other side of the timing mat, so it would be a little less stressful. And it turns out that other people were thinking the same thing, and evidently people who were at their tents were being told, like, go wait for your riders on the other side of the mats. So she had moved. When I got to our tent, there were some people there saying, hey, Liz is on the other side, meet her there. So I got to see her right as I crossed the timing mat. Like, she was literally like 10 feet after the mat. And I'd finally had the mental wherewithal to ask for ibuprofen. The first time I saw her at mile 20, whatever, I had meant to ask for ibuprofen because my back was on fire, and I kept forgetting every aid station. And so I'd finally remembered, this is the last time I would see her, and I finally remembered to get ibuprofen, which was a huge win. And I took my bottles, and I decided not to take my hydration pack because I thought it'd just be too heavy. There's some big climbs coming up, and I wanted to save the weight, and I knew that I could get more water at Carter Summit if I was able to keep going. So I got what I needed and said goodbye, and that was it for Liz. She was off to the finish line. There was nothing left for her to do out on the course, so she headed to the finish line where I was hoping to see her. And then not long after that, you get to the power line climb, and it was brutal. I still say Columbine is so much worse, but it was brutal for sure. But I still had hope that I would make it to the finish, and I was relieved that I would for sure make it. As long as I kept moving, I'd make it to Carter Summit. And if I did that, then I'd be able to say that I rode 93 miles of the 105-mile course. And that was really cool. Like, that's a good day to say I didn't finish, but I got through 93 miles. Like, that's awesome. So I had hope, and as it hurt, it was terrible, but I just kept moving. And that's where I'm not really sure if it was more of a mental or physical battle. As I went up power line, There's a lot that I had to walk for sure, but I saw rider after rider just sitting or laying on the side of the trail, just they'd totally given up. I saw people get out their phones and call their friends or their team, whoever, to say like, hey, come meet me. I'm pulling out. And at this point, I was passing a lot of people. Previously, I've just kind of been here and there. Some people might pass me. I might pass some people, but once I started on Powerline, there was a lot of people that I passed, and I had ridden it a couple days before, so I recognized the portion that is nearest the top. You're still climbing up a little bit, but it's basically the top, and that was a huge relief. I was so relieved that I made it. I got into the top of Powerline, and another huge win. Like again, if I stopped right there, then I've done like some major cruxes of the course. And I hadn't totally kept track of the time, but I knew that I generally wasn't too far off of what I had done a couple of days prior when I was fresh. So I was just like, keep going. We gotta keep going. Came down the other side, down Sugarloaf, down Hegerman Road, I think it is. And then I think the next climb is called May Queen. I'm not totally sure if that's what it's called, but there's a road climb that goes up to Carter Summit. It's a couple miles long. I had not done it or seen it at all or even thought about it, and it was not fun. It's paved, so that was nice, but I was not ready for how long and difficult that would be. My Garmin has this Climb Pro data that pops up on screen and tells you how long is left and the different pitches, like if it's 5%, 10%, whatever the grade is. I was trying to ignore that. I was hoping it was wrong. But there were a couple points where I just had to get off and walk because my legs would not pedal anymore. So I'd walk for a minute or two, I don't know how long exactly, and get back on, because I knew Carter Summit was at the top. That was the last cutoff. I had to get there. So when I was on my bike, I just pushed the steadiest pace I could hold, and I finally saw Carter Summit, and you're still climbing up, and it's around a bend, so like you kind of see it for a little bit. Someone had come down and said that we missed. There's a couple of us, there's like, I think one person in front of me, 2 or 3 behind me. We're all spaced out quite a bit. But he was saying to us generally, like, you guys missed the cutoff, great job. You guys just missed it. And I was a little confused because I knew the cutoff time, and I looked at my watch and I thought it was 6:20 p.m. and my watch said it was 6:20 p.m. That's the cutoff. So I just kept going. I picked up the pace as it flattened out and was just hoping. And then I turned onto the dirt to get into the aid station, and they're all yelling, go, you made it. You made the cutoff, keep going. So got super excited, started moving. I made my way to the aid station, but all the people were like the water and nutrition and food they're just like, go, you made it. So I was just like, oh, okay, I need water, but I'll keep going. And I kept going. And so that was it. I was on my way to the finish line. No checkpoints, no cutoffs left. And those last 12 miles got lonely. There were some riders out, but like there weren't many of us left. There was a rider who was stopped and I was able to get water from, thankfully. I just asked if he had anything to spare, and he gave me some, and I just took some long shots from his water bottle, because I didn't have anything. So that was a huge help. I couldn't have done it without him, or maybe I could have done it, but I'm just so thankful that he offered that up. And for Liz, she had left the cruise station and was headed back to the finish line, and she was using the event tracker, the event website, to see my updates every time I passed a timing mat. There's more timing mats than there were aid stations, so there's quite a few of them. And that was the only thing that was updating. I had an air tag. We thought that would be a good idea to try, but the air tag was updating, hours late. So that was completely useless. So she was using that, but the event tracking had stopped. It stopped recording me. And after I left the aid station. So everything from then on, she was not getting any updates. It was recording, but it wasn't being updated on the website. So she had no idea where I was or how I was progressing. She checked in with the timing people at the finish line, and they were seeing the same thing. And when the time passed for Carter Summit, they just said, oh, he didn't make the cutoff, so he's going to get picked up. He's going to get on a shuttle and come back. So there were a bunch of other people kind of in the same boat and, you know, maybe hearing different things. So she ended up checking with them a couple different times. There was another Mayhem team member that I passed on the Powerline climb. So his family was in the same boat, and they were trying to figure out, you know, hearing the same story. So they're all trying to figure that out. So meanwhile, I had made it to the final few miles of the course, which are super rough, by the way. If you rode that section fresh on any other day, you wouldn't think anything of it, but it's just an annoyingly long, slight climb at the end of, you know, 100-mile race. Like you pass 100 miles at that point, you're still on this lonely dirt road climbing up. So it's it was rough, but I was making my way. And so Liz went back to the timing folks to ask one more time and just check where does the shuttle drop me off, so that she knows where to go. And when she asked and they looked up my profile one last time, they said, oh, he just passed kick to finish, which neither of us knew what that meant. I wouldn't have known to tell her about that. But it's 1 mile before the finish line. So she's there with our friends Caroline and Christian, and they're like, wait, okay, now we have to run over the finish line and to see him. And so they ran over the finish line and were able to get there while I was still coming up the road, and she was able to catch me coming across the finish line.
Steve Johnson from Quakertown, PA. Congratulations, my friend. Another finisher here. No quitting from Rock. Steve Johnson from Quakertown, PA. Congratulations, my friend. Another finisher here. No quitting from Rock Davis out of Boulder.
So I had finished in 12 hours, 48 minutes, and 31 seconds. If you saw the clock over the finish line, again, that's the gun time for when the pro men start. We started like 30 minutes after they started, so after that timer started. Now there's a big storyline about finishing in under 12 hours. You get a belt buckle if you finish in under 12 hours, and that's a major goal or motivator for most everyone who does Leadville. I'd certainly thought about it, but I also knew that they let people go after 12 hours. You can still finish after 12 hours, and that was more likely to be the scenario for me. So it still counts. I still finished. I still got my finisher medal, right? So I still get my finisher medal. I still record a time. It's not a DNF. I get to call myself Leadville finisher, and you can look up my time on the website and everything. But there's definitely a pull to get back there and finish in under 12 hours. And if I can do it multiple times, to never finish in over 12 hours, unless I have a mechanical issue or something. But I'm certainly hungry for that. So needless to say, the next morning my Garmin was telling me all sorts of things that just affirmed what I felt in my body, which was pretty funny. And kind of looking back in the end, it's an incredible journey. I'm so thankful for the friends that I made along the way, and all the support from people along the way, donations and just encouraging words and all those kind of things. And most of all, just thankful to Liz for all the support and cheerleading along the way. It means the world. And I definitely want to thank the Mayhem Missions team for taking a chance on this project. 13 of 16 of us finished, which is really, really incredible. And we raised, I think it was $60,000 for the Leadville 100 Trail Legacy Foundation, which is really cool. And I'm hopeful to ride for them again. And I especially want to thank David Curtis. David is a very, very special person, a great man. And we all owe it to him for all of this coming together. So the journey is just getting started. I'm super proud of all the work that I put in, and that was in a short period of time. It was basically 5 months of work, and I'm excited. Hopefully I get to do it next year, and have more time to prepare for it. That'll be exciting. But whenever I do it next, I'll have more time to prepare for it, I think. So it's just getting started. I really appreciate everyone following along. If you've watched this far in this super long video, thank you. I hope you enjoyed the story. I hope to document it all much better. So thanks for tuning in, and stay tuned for more.